Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:08 p.m. Central. You're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM, New Orleans. And it blazed out. I hear a little feedback. I'm not sure what. Let me make sure my mic's on the right thing. Let me see. Yes, it is. Okay, just checking. All right. Well, someone told me StreamYard's been doing that a lot lately, so it's like some weird glitch or
They
something.
had some weird glitch. I know because I use it almost every day, and today they had some kind of notice about it, but they are working on it.
It's like there's so many people on it, it's bleeding through. Like the Matrix is bleeding through from everyone. It's too many. But it's good to have you back, Leo Zagami.
Pleasure.
And I titled the show, Got Those Illuminati Blues, baby. But Illuminati. Naughty. Like naughty. Like being naughty. But here's the thing. I saw on a Michael Jaco, the Navy SEAL dude, it said former Illuminati insider.
Well, yes, because I have I have, as you know, left Europe in 2019, and after that, I didn't have any further activity. I tried prior to that with a minor group that I was in charge of trying to change a little bit the course of things, but then I had to flee Europe because it was almost impossible, especially with the Vatican and also with the Italian mafia being connected with Freemasonry. It started to become also a little bit dangerous in Europe. So that's why I was forced to flee. Also due to the fact they were censoring my books and they were wanting to arrest me. So I actually changed my nationality this year, and I'm no longer Italian. I formally renounced my Italian citizenship, so I can finally move on and also work without any problems, because you have really a lot of difficulties in writing books like I do in Europe. It's not as free, especially books, for example, like the latest one on Islam. This one in Italy or in Germany will get me probably arrested. They will tell, because you can't talk about Islam any longer in Europe without having problems. And of course, this is not even a ferocious census critic about Islam. This is a book about Islamic Freemason and Islamic Illuminati. So it's quite an interesting point of view, I think, also for the people who follow the Muslim religions. In fact, I actually receive praises from Sufis for this book, even if I don't talk that well about them in the book.
And Freemasonry, is it really connected to the Illuminati? I know my stepdad, where I live now, passed away, and sometimes I find weird like pictures and stuff. I'm like, this is weird. Gives me the creeps for some reason. But is it really truly connected to it? Because I know you just brought up Freemasonry, but is it truly connected to all that?
Like I explained in volume 8 of my Confessions, but also in the prior volumes, my experience has been not only Freemasonry, but in a number of secret societies. However, there is part of Freemasonry which is connected with the Illuminati, especially within the Rites of Memphis and Mizraim, within the strict Templar observance, the rectified Scottish Rite, and also the Swedish Rite. There is some, let's say, elements that kind of unite these ancient mystery schools, which we commonly refer to as the Illuminati, but then you have the traditional Illuminati that still follow maybe the old rituals of Adam Weishaupt, and that's really a small group, really, compared to all the others. There is an Academy of the Illuminati in Rome under Giuliano Di Bernardo. There is also a group, kind of quite strong group of Illuminati based in Greece that seem to follow that kind of tradition. But I personally am a former Illuminati because I no longer have any. I'm no longer active neither in Freemasonry. I tried when I came here to America and live in California to see if I could associate myself with some local lodge, but it was just not working out, because the lodges and Freemason in general here in California is way too progressive, way too inclined to support the democratic instances, even if they should not be political or religious in any way. They tend to be actually quite embracing of occultists like OTO and all that. And so in the end, I just stay with the idea that I tried my best within the Illuminati to see, especially when I was still living in Italy, if we could maybe make a difference. But nowadays, there is definitely part of Freemasonry which is led astray, like most institutions, though, not only Freemasonry, the church, politics, by this globalist leftist communist creed. Now, the Illuminati were the laboratory where Freemasonry was born. And I explained that in my books. In volume 9 of my Confessions, I also explain how they are really the descendants of the old Gnostics. The Gnostics were heretic Christians, or even prior to Christianity, they existed, going all the way back to Babylon and to ancient Sumeria. But I mean, at the moment, when you are telling me the Freemasons and the Illuminati, if you tell me the regular Freemasons, the ones you see at the entrance of each city or town in America with the compass and square next to the Rotary Club and maybe the shrine, and those kind of Freemasons are social Freemasons more than occult. A minority of them, though, is also in other groups and belongs to groups affiliated to the Illuminati. But there is also irregular Freemasonry, like I was just saying before. Irregular Freemasonry is a different thing. Irregular Freemasonry is born out of lodges that don't have to follow the strict rules and regulations that usually impose to the people who join not to discuss religion and politics, especially in African American communities, because also of the segregation, let's say, the fact that two forms of Freemasonry kind of coexisted but never really met together, the black one with the Prince Saul and of course the traditional regular Freemasonry. But then Prince Saul became more and more regular. However, some African American lodges mingle in irregularity, and they claim to work with the Illuminati and with the New World Order. And here in California, there was even a scandal involving Kamala Harris 10 years ago. So that was somehow connected with one of these groups.
What is there's like this weird, it seems like a cult that calls himself Illuminati that try to harass you online and get you to join.
Okay, that is something I explained in volume 1 of my Confessions, because I wanted to clear the matter up at the beginning of my... basically, they are Nigerian scammers. Most of them are Nigerian scammers. Of course, there might be also of other nationalities. The Chinese, let's say, prefer other kind of frauds. They go for the love kind of, online, the catfishing to get. When it comes to the Nigerians, they became so obsessed with the Illuminati that they actually contacted my publisher, and they threatened him, and they said, well, you can actually give us the rights for a sum, which I think was $500 or $600, or you can forget, we will publish it anyway. And so it actually was published in Africa. It was published in Nigeria. And there is a lot of people, unfortunately, that sell Illuminati fake diplomas online. And that's why they go after you, and they promise you, riches and fame if you join us. But ultimately, it's another sad fraud, which, it's a little bit born out of ignorance, Mom, I think, because I had one guy who contacted me and said, Leo, I gave them $2,000 and they sent me this diploma. And the sad thing is that actually they started to use also my name in several Instagram's account. And actually the paradox was that I was kicked out of Instagram in 2019 because of my association with Alex Jones. And then you still have the fake Leo Zagamis online, and some of them selling these fraudulent diplomas. I tried to connect back when I was still living in Italy with the Italian police authorities to ask them some help, but it was very difficult. So, and as the system of the social networks is so is all based on artificial intelligence guidance and stuff, you don't really have a number you can call and tell them there is this fraud going on. I just warn people, listen, there is no way a secret society, and the name secret implies secret, will publicize itself online. It's just ridiculous. It doesn't work that way. The actual real organizations, which let's say are part of the Illuminati network or are sects that are born out of it, and there is many, including the OTO, but we can count many others, the Temple of Set, Fraternitas Rosicruciana Antigua, Fraternitas Saturni, and then we could go on and on and on, Golden Dawn and so on. All these groups, if they are genuine, they tend to want to have a more elitarian kind of membership, and especially when it comes to certain lodges, very exclusive lodges of Freemasonry or other kind of Masonic or Paramasonic organizations or Rosicrucian, they always tend to select you. It's not like you go knocking at that door and they open very easily. If it is an exclusive organization, it's made up of people that want only certain kind of people in the organization based on their position, maybe social status, bloodline, and whatnot.
Yes. Well, I know you had said that you haven't done Jones because he doesn't want to talk about the Vatican. So let us talk about that, because I'll go after him. I'm someone that's seen weird UFO stuff and weird beings with multiple witnesses, and I do believe the Vatican hides stuff about that as well. But
I've written extensively about that in Invisible Master, one of my books, and also in my latest volume 9, because here I actually show also documents that regard a UFO retrieval that happened in Italy in the 1930s, and during fascism was Mussolini was in power, and then this UFO would be eventually passed on to the Americans through the Vatican, and the documentation regarding this UFO that they recovered in northern Italy in the town of Magenta is in this book, which is volume 9. So it was my friend Roberto Pinotti, who is the head of the CUN, the Centro Ufologico Nazionale, who is also working, I think, here in America, collaborating with Stephen Greer, and who also works with other people, who was given these documents by somebody whose father was witness to this UFO retrieval. And I mean, it's a little bit like what happened in Roswell. All these UFOs that are then retrieved, they get used for reverse engineering. The reverse engineering process is what generated artificial intelligence starting from the 1950s as we know it.
in that case, I remember some case in Italy about a woman in a UFO thing, but I can't remember her name, but it was pretty famous. I'd have to look it up, but it's something I saw with a lot of illustrations and things like that. And
just to show you, this is a document of the fascist era of Mussolini, in which basically, as you can see, this document is a telegram that was sent regarding the fact that they didn't want the media to talk about this. So basically, the Duce, Mussolini himself, ordered maximum penalties to any journalist that will be reporting on the aircraft of unknown nature and origins that was recovered back then.
Wow.
At the time, Enrico Fermi was still living in Italy, and apparently there was a secret group, Gabinetto 33, they used to call it, in which they were, of course, studying this retrieval. It seems like then Fermi moved to America, and that's where, as you might know, then he gave birth to what is known as the Fermi paradox. When he was talking with his fellow scientists that were experimenting the first atomic bomb, he came up with this concept that where are these UFOs? We don't see them. It's something that from that moment onwards became really the leitmotif of the academic world. The fact that we don't see them because they might be too distant, or however, we also know that Fermi himself might have been lying, meaning that Fermi himself, because this Fermi paradox apparently happened at the end of a lunch, and when you are at lunch, you might want to you challenge people. So I think that it could have also been that Fermi himself knew very well about this reality, but he was kind of joking about it, let's say, okay, in front of the other scientists. I think that there is a lot about reverse engineering that needs to be discussed in the coming years, because there was at least an attempt, I think, last year to, with all this whistleblower activity, the Pentagon, the Congress, all this interest in UFOs. But of course, we are talking about top secret stuff that will not be revealed because it will jeopardize probably a lot of people and of course the national security of the countries that might be involved. I think that at the moment UFOs don't need to land in the traditional way we envision on Independence Day. UFOs are much more, UFOs, if they carry some alien species, and this alien species is already in control of us through the artificial intelligence, which has been insinuated into our reality for the last few decades, and we are getting more and more dependent from it.
Yes.
So I think that is really what we have to discuss. The fact that UFOs might already be partly in control of humanity, let's say. It's a Trojan horse. That's the concept which I discussed in volume 9 of my Confessions. The reverse engineering and the alien threat are real, but I think that our perception is somehow distorted by Hollywood.
Yeah, the weirdest thing that makes me think something is happening, and not to get into these shows too heavily, but on the History Channel, they have Secret of Skinwalker Ranch and Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. And, Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, but Skinwalker Ranch was for a time involved with Bigelow, with Colonel Alexander, who was himself a very good friend and co-participant to Psy-War with Michael Aquino. So we're talking about occult activity that goes on in this place, which, of course, is evident. I had a friend of mine who went there with an RV, and suddenly he was struck by a lightning. The RV went on fire. And he was literally there. He called me like the day before saying, "Oh, I'm here. I'm with my RV in front of Skinwalker Range." And then the day after, he was like, the lightning struck, and then I think that these kind of places are very powerful, and you should not approach them in a superficial way. And I think that what has happened with all this, since it was then sold by Bigelow and Alexander, and those people abandoned the place now to this, I think was some big real estate guy from Utah or somebody who purchased it.
the biggest weirdest thing about it is the former scientist that was there with Bigelow, Travis, the blonde hair guy, is still there. And then for the longest time, he didn't tell anyone on the show that he used to work there with Bigelow as the main scientist. He came out of the closet on air about it, and he told everybody that, and I guess they were okay with it, but it was still very weird. But the weirdest thing is Colonel John Alexander is on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, the show, and he had that Chris Bledsoe guy hook up some kind of neurology helmet, and the guy summons UFOs as.
Well, I can tell you one thing about Alexander. Recently, I see him often in kind of new age circles, UFO enthusiast. I think that he's more like part of a psyop. You can't really trust somebody who has been part of Michael Aquino's entourage. I mean, you just have to study what his whole mind war is about to understand you can trust him. So, I mean, people specialized in psychological operations are particularly interested with the UFO phenomenon. We don't have to forget, I mean, I published a book, volume 8, about the contact that links the Pentagon directly with Hollywood, and the way they push certain movies is also to program people with specific set of ideas. I mean, we are programmable as human beings. We have to admit sometimes that we are easy to program. When we get these people to maybe instigate the idea that an alien has to be perceived in a certain way through Hollywood, they get to I mean, remember what happened in the 70s? There was Encounters of the Third Kind. There was the work, of course, of Jacques Vallée that was vaguely mentioned, but we had also later on E.T., which gave a completely positive idea of an alien encounter, when we know that often the alien encounters are not so positive after all, and they have a lot to do with the more demonic realm. That's why Skinwalker Ranch and what happens there is more within that kind of activity, I think.
And that Jack Vallée was at Skinwalker Ranch with Bigelow, but they never told what really happened. Of course, Bigelow keeps everything shut up like a jerk, but he didn't really tell anyone what happened, but he went out there, that Jack Vallée went out there.
Well, Jack Vallée has always been involved at various levels of the UFO movement, and also I think he has done an excellent research in all the various sectarian activities that surround the UFO movement. I mean, and the connections that UFOs have with the elementary spirits that are discussed by occultists for the last 500 years, since the time of Paracelsus, or the jinn of the Islamic tradition, and so on. I mean, I saw a little bit, I'm not like completely obsessed by it, but I saw some things that happen at Skinwalker Ranch in this reportage, in these documentaries. And this is classical activity that any ordinary human should avoid if he doesn't want to get cursed, and if he doesn't want to end up with a tumor in his head or any other thing. I mean,
yeah. And that show, the spinoff Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, they're going to other ranches, and similar stuff's happened at these other ranches. That's really weird. It's like, and of course, some of the other ranches Bigelow owned at one point as well. He's always got his hand in it somehow or some way. But the biggest creepy thing about those shows, besides the paranormal stuff, is there's so many government spooks on these shows. Former CIA, our investigators, Colonel.
That's why we have to be very careful with getting involved in psychological operations that are there to actually push their own agenda on us, and so we have to always be very wary of that.
They're up to something with those for sure. And I don't, most of those shows I think are, crap, but those two shows, there's something with they're definitely up to something with that show, no doubt about it.
I tell you my own experience. When I went for the 72th anniversary, I was there on the day at Roswell in 2019. And then I had to leave in the middle of the night because I was supposed to go to Austin for participating with Alex to a show And then at one point I was driving out of Roswell, and I start seeing this long queue of cars. It was like a presidential, line of cars, military, policemen. They pushed us on the side. We were on the car, and they literally pushed us on the side. I filmed on this on camera. And the day after, I called my friend, who is the curator there and one of the co-founders of the Roswell Museum, and Donald Schmidt, and I asked him. I said, do you know about any military or any important visit in town last night around 2 or 3 o'clock? He said, no, there's nothing. And he asked also the local authorities if there was anything. But the incredible thing is that I could see where they were heading, and they were heading basically towards the outside of Roswell, towards the site where there was the actual crash. And that was, I repeat, in the middle of the night on July the 2nd, 2019. Pretty particular experience.
Definitely sounds fascinating for sure. So what else about the Vatican can you share? I mean,
the Vatican, regarding the UFOs, I have discussed extensively in my books, because they have in the last few years opened up very much their public view and research on the UFO subject through the Jesuits. The Jesuits are in charge of the astronomical sector of the Vatican, and they have revealed, of course, that they have also that that astronomical observatory next to that Lucifer telescope, no? And that is in Arizona, is on a holy ground there, and apparently there is a lot of UFO activity that goes on there. The Jesuits are in charge. They're the scientists. They are the ones who are also infiltrated in the New Age movement and every UFO cult or anything. The Jesuits seem to be always present, because the Vatican, through the Jesuits, is building up now, the Jesuits and Freemasonry, a one-world religion. A one-world religion, which, and at the same time, they want to prepare people for contact with an alien, no? So they discuss, what about if we baptize the alien? What about, and so they discuss all this. Now there is a guy called Guy Consolmagno who is in charge. The old guy, though, he was also linked to this group, which is a secret group that is based in Russia. And in Russia, apparently, after the UFO experiences they had during the Soviet Union, they established a special kind of group dedicated to this UFO research. And it seems like they have contacts with the Academy of the Illuminati in Rome, and also with the Podesta, John Podesta, the guy who used to work for Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016, if you remember, who seems to be quite knowledgeable and after the UFO manifestations. I think that what we have seen, though, is that as soon as a whistleblower came out, like Grush, with some really important stuff, and he actually confirmed also what I've written regarding the Mussolini UFO, I must say, in his, but I mean, as soon as somebody like that comes out, then they tend to work to silence him in every way possible. In fact, nowadays, I don't know what has happened to Charles Grush. I mean, he was a veteran, a former member of the National Intelligence Agency, a member of institutions also with high top security, top secret clearance, access to secrets that most people don't know. And he definitely shocked the world with his interview he first did with the Australian journalist Ross Coulthard for News Nation, who seems to still be very interested in this UFO phenomenon, but mostly probably as a way of getting views on. It seems though there is not really any serious. When you discuss the alien or the UFO phenomenon, Grush came up with some confirmation about this unidentified, how they call it now, WAP, aerial phenomenon. He came with some confirmations, and he went in front of Congress. I mean, nowadays it seems like all that fuss, all that stuff that was discussed kind of evaporated. And I don't understand why there is no public interest for further discussion about what was revealed by him. Don't you think so, Jeffrey?
Yeah, it's definitely a lot coming out with your books. I'm looking on Amazon and reading through the reviews and stuff, and I see you talk about Turkish Sufi Freemasons and how Aleister Crowley and Adolf Hitler embraced secret practices. Do we know much about the secret practices? What was it, more like rituals?
You see, when it comes down to these entities, these energies that come from ancient Egypt, from ancient Mesopotamia, Freemasonry itself, as we know it today, speculative Freemasonry was, of course, born in Europe, in England, France. But when it because they were all colonies of either the United Kingdom or France, they started to expand Freemasonry into these countries. Freemasonry in reality already existed under different forms. There were various mystery schools also that we know as the Sufis. And Aleister Crowley was initiated in one of them. A secret society that is particularly active in Morocco and in Egypt, and it's called Aisawa. In fact, he then gave the name of his alleged otherworldly communicator, Aivas, but in reality, Aivas is an anagram of Aisawa. And he was also, let's not forget, in 1902, he had translated an important grimoire that then he used the invocation of the Boundless One inside the Great Pyramid. And he started to really move those energies. And these are interdimensional entities that if you invite into this dimension, then he invited them in this dimension. He wanted to actually work actively with these entities, and we know what happened when he then depicted one of them that resembled very much what we commonly associate with an alien in the figure of the lamb, no? This frontispiece, this image he had drawn for Blavatsky's book of silence, the book of silence, and so Aleister Crowley was definitely a guy who knew about these entities, knew about creatures from other parts of the universe, knew probably a lot about interdimensional travel and about portals that are found in places like, for example, the Great Pyramid of Giza. But now, when it comes to Hitler and Aleister Crowley connecting to Islam and certain rituals, let's not forget that the centerpiece, the center of the whole Islamic faith is a supposed object that comes from another planet, from another star. Some say from Sirius. It's the Kaaba with this square, and then it is a very particular place because they go around it in a certain way, producing more and more energy for this very powerful egregore. And we have also a mosque in Mecca, which is actually not open for humans, only for entities, for jinn. So I think that is quite revelatory. And in my book, of course, I explain how Crowley was particularly obsessed with wanting to get to Mecca, but he never managed. because there was actually people that managed by simply passing, learning the language and going there as Muslims, looking like Muslims. But Crowley didn't look like your average Muslim. And he really wanted to go there, but he never managed. So he never had the possibility of working with that kind of force that was there. However, he made already enough damage with all the rituals that he conducted elsewhere. So at least we know that we were spared one bad thing that could have gone even worse.
So I'm seeing in the bio you were once involved with Islam on behalf of the Illuminati as Khalid Saifullah Khan. Is that like like a different name that you had?
Yes. So when you embrace the religion of Islam, you have to adopt an Islamic name if you have a Christian name. And at that time, I was operating and working with the Monte Carlo Lodge. At the same time, I got together with my first wife, who was a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. And in fact, this book is actually dedicated to my only son, which I never saw after they accused me of espionage and they sold me out to the enemy back in 2008. And since then, I never saw my only son. And I had the actual explicit accusation of espionage. That was for 2 years. I had all my accounts frozen, everything, all my, everything I owned. And then suddenly, fortunately, in February 2010, this accusation from the PST, which is like the FBI of Norway, they simply stated that there was no evidence that I had done any espionage activities against the Kingdom of Norway, which I never did. So it was, but of course I was exposing Satanists who were from Norway, like the secretary at the time of the Ministry of Defense, which he was part of the OTO, and that was quite. But like I explained in this book, the OTO in its rituals has a lot of Islamic elements.
And I know you bring up the Knights Templar and Baphomet. That's always a fascinating story.
Yeah.
What kind of things did you unveil about Baphomet?
Well,
I
would say that in my book, for the first time, I showed the real Baphomet, which was found between Syria and Turkey in a Templar church, which is Mohammed on the cross as it was worshipped by the Assassins, who then transmitted to the Knights Templar. This is it. Watch. This is an image of the cross that was given to me by the Grand Master of the Sufi order, Geray Helveti, in Turkey. It was never really, after the discovery in the 1950s in this Templar church, it has never been showed in a museum because they're afraid that, of course, it will offend the Muslims. You see, the concept of representing even remotely Muhammad is forbidden in Islam. You can't paint him, you can't draw him, let alone put him on a cross with a turban. So
they were going to kill the Southport guys for some of that stuff.
No, but in reality, that is the original Baphomet. That is the original Baphomet. The Knights Templars, it's a kind of a distorted way of pronouncing it from the French, from the ancient French of that time, and from the way they actually then went on worshipping in secret this. Because of course, Muhammad on the cross is a quite unusual thing. But the Templars, they were the allies in secret of the Assassins, of the Nizari Shia Muslims, who they utilize against the Seljuk Turks of Saladin during the Crusades. So there was this ongoing war between, of course, the Pope suddenly saw the expansion of Islam as a threat. He then transformed literally a religion which never ever invited anybody to a crusade or to a sacrifice like that, because Jesus didn't want to spread his religion in that way. But the Pope, of course, sent these emissaries in the Middle East, and they told them, listen, if we want to wage war against them, we need to have a system which is just as good. We have to have knights that are really convinced of what they're doing. So they have to be convinced of the ultimate sacrifice. And that was when the Knights Templars actually were founded. Before that, the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre, let's say all the knighthoods started to appear on the scene, and they were inspired originally by the Islamic knights that were defending also the pilgrims that went to Mecca. That all this came from Islam. The Assassins and the way the order of the Assassins was built up with their initiations and everything, that also inspired the Knights Templars. Even the colors of the Knights Templar, the white and the red cross on the white background, was inspired by the Assassins. So the Assassins, though, became also the allies, because that's when the Templars realized that because of the divisions that were very evident in the Muslim world, that was starting, there was, of course, we had this big Fatimid Empire, which was Shia, which for a time expanded the Shia power even to the south of Italy, because Sicily, for example, became Muslim for 3 centuries. And most of the 3 centuries, it was under the control of the Shia, initially of the Sunni, but then of the Shia Muslims. The Fatimid, they create basically an emirate of Sicily at one point. So the actual Muslim faith, though, was very fragmented. From the moment Prophet Muhammad died, they started to argue amongst his relatives, amongst his close friends, and then it was who was the head, and then there was these first 4 caliphs after Muhammad, but then at the 4th caliph there was this guy called Ali, who was the cousin of the Prophet, who married his daughter, and that gave birth to the Shia tradition. But there is one thing here: the Muslim Illuminati are very important, because they are actually coming from the ancient mystery schools. We find them in Cairo, we find them in Baghdad. In Cairo, they gave birth to a lodge which has not really been discussed for the last 100 years. The last ones who discussed this lodge was Edith Miller, Nesta Webster, but after that, there was nobody who really discussed this Cairo lodge. You see, when Islam started to expand, they had to absorb religions that had thousands of years of history. Egypt had thousands of years of history. And suddenly you arrive with the newborn baby, this religion, Islam, convincing people who have been there for thousands of years. And so instead of completely eliminating the Zoroastrians, the Manichaeans, in Persia, for example, they created simply secret societies to protect that knowledge. They eventually merged with what we know as Sufis. The Sufis started to expand first in the Shia world, and then much later in the Sunni world. And especially in the Shia world, they were very successful, because the Shia, they were persecuted by the Sunni. So the Illuminati saw this religion as a way of controlling the people. In the Cairo Lodge, the main religion within the lodge was science, but they knew that for controlling millions of people, they needed the Quran. And that was their attitude. And it stayed their attitude all the way till now. But when there was Jalaluddin al-Afghani, the founder of modern Islam, as they know him, Jalaluddin al-Afghani then became the founder of a very powerful lodge in Egypt that for 10 years was one of the most influential ones. And Jalaluddin al-Afghani was the guy who created the Salafi movement, part of the Salafi movement. And later on, his disciples founded the Muslim Brotherhood, that in turn then founded Al-Qaeda, Hamas, ISIS, and everything else. So that branch of Islam, that is quite recent, the Salafi movement, was actually established by a Shia who pretended to be a Sunni to bring back that kind of those forbidden practices of the Nizari Assassins. I mean, when you talk about jihad is also a concept that through the first 2 or 3 centuries before the Assassins arrived, before the Nizari, Islam was in the hands of people who had a view of jihad, which was basically, if you arrive in a town and there is Christians and Jews, you simply tax them. If they're pagan, they have to absolutely convert. But then when you have the Assassins, you have a new modality. These people, they will slit your throat in the middle of the night. They will bend to the ground the place. They will not have the kind of knighthood respect which you will have between, for example, Saladin and the Templars. It was a different kind of war. These were knights who were fighting. The Assassins were more like ninjas coming to slit your throat in the middle of the night, professional assassins. And that is what has inspired, though, the Shia Assassins, the Nizaris, were eventually defeated by the Mongols, by, I think, the grandson of Genghis Khan. And they were pretty ruthless too, especially when it came down to certain techniques that they were using. And so then the actual Nizari kind of went in other parts of the world. But when it comes down to the Illuminati in the Middle East, there was 2 places which I show in my book. One is the House of Wisdom. The other one was the House of Knowledge. And to this day, Cairo is still the center place of the Middle Eastern Illuminati. That's why when they have to discuss something about the crisis in the Middle East, in Gaza and stuff, they always end up in Cairo over and over again, because that's the center. But of course, the ancient schools of Memphis, of Alexandria, of Egypt, they didn't just disappear. They kind of just merged with Islam.
It's always fascinating, the secret school topic and some of these like mystery schools. I don't know if you've ever come across this one. If not, it's no worries. But I know I came across something about Vlad the Impaler, Dracula in Transylvania, and some kind of mystery school called Scholomance or Scholomance, and was like superstitions about the devil being there, and like 7 enter and 1 has to stay there to learn the mysteries. But it's always weird how some of this stuff's in every different culture. But that one always that gave me chills just saying it for some reason. I don't know if you've ever came across anything about him at all in your studies, have you? Vlad the Impaler?
Yes, about secret societies that claim to have a link to the Order of the Dragon, this and that. There is definitely, I have a book here written by a French marquise who is a friend of mine, Jean-Pierre Giudicelli de Bressac de la Bachelerie, who addressed the mystery schools of Transylvania and all that. And it's, he's a credible source. So I completely trust.
What's that book called?
Unfortunately, it's a book that came out only in French. So it's called Pour la Rose Rouge et la Croix d'Or. And there is some very interesting information. But there is knighthoods. There is, of course, and I explained how the knighthoods were born. They were born to resist to the Muslims, and Vlad the Impaler was resisting to the Muslims. Let's not forget that. But at the same time, of course, you have then the legends of vampirism that are not really specifically connected with Vlad the Impaler, but with many other characters during the course of history. However, I would say that there is definitely secret societies that go back to, or at least they claim to go back to Vlad the Impaler.
Yeah, I think that Prince Charles or something tries to say something like that or something.
Well, he has actually a direct bloodline link to, like most aristocrats in Europe, we are all related, including myself, with various, I'm related, for example, with Prince Charles because my grandfather was cousin to the Queen Mother. So you have all this. He has also links, of course, to Transylvania directly, but because most of the rulers of the aristocrats used to simply marry with each other. So it kind of stayed within the realm of those rulers and kings and queens and marquises, dukes and whatever. That is the Illuminati. It is first of all about the bloodlines, and that's why they give a particular importance to the aristocratic and to the royal element.
And now you talk about jihadists and trying to manifest the apocalypse and destroy Western civilization, and of course, you're going to have to.
When it comes to, you mentioned Baphomet before, and Baphomet. Of course, we know Baphomet not by the cross I showed you, but by this image, which is the image Eliphas Levi kind of depicted, and then the Satanic Temple picked up, and now it's on the Capitol Hill. The jihadists, and I talk about this in volume 10 of my Confessions, were the mercenaries, or the ones, this old alliance between the Assassins and Knights Templars. It didn't just fade out of history. It kind of resurfaced over and over again until the modern Templars, the Dick Cheney, the Bushes of the situation, they made an alliance with them. And so Mohammed Atta and all those people, while Bush was reading his pet goat book and doing his pet goat ritual with the children, while there was the Twin Towers coming down, is because there is definitely still this alliance going on between the Western Illuminati and the Middle Eastern counterparts. So that's why I think that volume 10 is particularly important as a book, because it shows that it's not only an inside job, it's actually an inside-out job, a job conducted between the Illuminati of the West and the Illuminati of the Middle East. And there is actual connection between the Bush family and the prince, a specific prince in Saudi Arabia, who was also the head of the intelligence, who actually collaborated with George W. Bush and later on went on to found, during the Obama era, ISIS. So these are, the Salafi jihadists are simply used, but they are also part, of course, of a much larger plan by the Illuminati, who have corrupted all religions, not only the Muslim one, but also the Christian, the Jewish one, through the Sabbatean Frankists. The Christians didn't necessarily have to go to do the Crusades. The Knights Templars themselves could have never been established in the first place. The fact is that they decided to take control of all these religions, and now they want to eventually merge them in a one-world religion. That's why the Pope, with the Imam of Al-Azhar, the prestigious university, but also the prestigious, most prestigious Imam in the Sunni world, they sealed together a document in early 2019, this Human Fraternity document in Dubai. And then on top of that document, the Pope established later on this base for this one world religion. And I talk about that very much in my books, in particular volume 7, to explain where we are heading.
And so with all the stuff going on in the Middle East right now, every day on the war front, it seems like all hell's about to break loose. And just when you think it's going to, it doesn't, but it gets closer the next day. Like, I'm just surprised someone hasn't set off a nuke yet. What do you think the forces are right now that's going on with the Middle East? And also, do you think there's someone they're trying to prop up as like an antichrist type figure, like some type of leader out there that you've seen or anything like that?
The Muslim world seems to be kind of coming together more than any time before. Before there was a very marked division between the Sunni and the Shia, between the fact that Wahhabi will never, Saudi Arabia will never even meet in the same room with Iran. Instead, things are changing here. There is, of course, the interest of China, of Russia, behind a lot of what is going on in the Middle East. To destabilize also Israel, it's something that comes from within Israel, because Israel has a big problem. They have a Sabbatean Frankist labor Zionist movement, which it's no better than what we see here in the US with the Democrats, and they are supported by the Rothschild and so on. And then you have, of course, the Messianic Jews, which are leftovers of what we used to call British Israelism. Let's not forget that if we have all these problems in the Middle East, a lot of the responsibility goes back to Great Britain and France, more than America, because America was not really in the picture until after the Second World War. Before that, there was the Sykes-Picot Agreement of 1916. There was later on the Balfour Declaration, of course, that invited back the Jews to take their own land. But before that, there was, of course, the Sabbatai and Frankists. And Sabbatai Zevi, apparently his father was an asset for the British, and they were the ones who pushed for the Messianic Jews to recolonize and take back their land, especially because, let's not forget, there was 8 centuries of Ottoman Empire. So when we go prior to what we discussed now, we discussed Adolf Hitler and the rituals of Turkish Freemasonry. I mean, the actual foundations of this whole mess in the Middle East goes back to the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, of course, was kind of mined from the inside by all these lodges, this Sabbatian, this Domme, they used to call them, and then these rituals, though, these esoteric, very powerful rituals that use the Quran in an esoteric way, were passed on to Adolf Hitler by Rudolf von Bottendorf in 1919. He founded the Thule Gesellschaft, the lodge, the Thule Lodge, representative of the German Orden, and that lodge and their occult practices eventually will lead Adolf Hitler to power. And so it was almost like a revenge also that certain forces in Turkey were having against the British forces that instead pushed the Young Turks, pushed for modernization, and eventually the collapse of the Ottoman Empire led to Ataturk, who was himself apparently a Sabbatian, so he was Jewish Sabbatian. When I say Sabbatian, this is the legacy of Shabbatai Zevi, this Jewish Messiah who proclaimed himself to be a Messiah, and in 1666 betrayed his own people by saying he converted to Islam. Shabbatai Zevi, though, had so many followers, millions of followers all over Europe, and not all of them accepted his conversion, and they continued, especially in Turkey, under the name Domme, meaning that they will proclaim themselves to be Muslims, but in reality they will continue to be Jews. It's very important, the legacy of the Domme, as well as the legacy of the Shabbatian Frankists, because it was people from the Domme who initiated Rudolf von Bottendorf, who then founded also the first newspaper for the Nazi Party. We're talking about the very early stages of the Nazi Party and of Adolf Hitler, who was kind of viewed by the Illuminati as a way of counteracting the forces that were coming into play here. I mean, the Illuminati pushed, of course, the legacy of communism so much that eventually will manifest in the Soviet Union. Of course, once it manifests in the Soviet Union, when you are in the Illuminati, you want to control both sides. So then Prescott Bush decided that the Germans, they should oppose the National Socialists, the communists that were. I mean, this was always built up in the philosophy of dividi et impera. So Hitler learned a lot from the secret rituals of Turkish Freemasonry. He learned to channel those energies that they would then use during his gatherings to magnetize his audience. He practiced these rituals. And I discussed these rituals in volume 10 of my Confessions. I, of course, discuss and also the way that when you see, for example, these people like even the late Osama bin Laden, they always used to do this with their hand, things like this or this. This is not just something the Muslim, it's a specific thing the Muslims do, but in reality, if you study them within the practices of ancient Turkish Freemasonry, they are supposed to empower you through the constant reciting of these surahs of the Quran, until you go through alchemical stages in which you perceive different colors in front of you, and this serves you to magnetize yourself. Like I said, Hitler got to become a real Antichrist of sorts. So you ask me if a new Antichrist will manifest. Now, we had already a few Antichrists that manifest on this planet. Sadly, one of them was Adolf Hitler, who ended up killing millions of Jews. Other Antichrist, some people say Napoleon was an Antichrist. Some people say Nero was an Antichrist. Now, the ultimate Antichrist will be somebody more like Prince William, for example. Prince William could be an ideal candidate for the office of Antichrist, but we have also currently Barack Hussein Obama, who is definitely another one for the candidate to the office of Antichrist. I remember there was that movie at one point, somebody who looked exactly like him, who was reciting the part of Satan. He was
the Christ, maybe. I can't remember that Mel Gibson thing.
No, much later. This was much later. But actually, you can see the Antichrist in Barack Obama. It's quite evident. But the ultimate Antichrist will be the one who aided and abetted by the cyber Satan, who is manifesting through artificial intelligence and taking over the show by the year 2030 in this prison planet of sorts, which is completely surrounding us with more and more. Let's say that this digital prison is expanding every day, and unfortunately, it seems like at one point the smart grid, everything that, like I explained in my books, especially volume 7, in regards to the smart world, you should always interpret the smartphone, the smart car, the smart house as satanic house, satanic phone. Everything that is smart is satanic. It just is an S because the moment in which you have a smart car, you will be dependent from the artificial intelligence who will control you. The moment in which you have a smartphone, you are more and more controlled by the artificial intelligence. The moment you have even a smart meter in your house, you are not even. It's not possible even to put a temperature in your home. They come around and they say, put a new meter, a smart meter, or a smart thing to measure your temperature. You should always refuse, because they will take control of yourself. Of your home. And then ultimately we see there's been cases of people who have been hacked when they have smart homes, where suddenly all the smart gadgets start talking to them. But smart is actually the Trojan horse of cyber Satan, which is manifesting more and more until we will be embracing transhumanism. Because ultimately I brought a trilogy, volume 6.66, volume 7, and volume 9, dedicated to cyber Satan. Now, in volume 9, I focus on the quantum computer, importance of the quantum computers, which is, I think, very important, because you have to realize that with quantum computers, all the crypto paradigm goes to hell. It's like they can break into every computer in the world, any password, anything. You are basically naked in front of the quantum computers. Now, quantum computers up until now have been of difficult access for the majority of the public, because they have cooling systems that cost millions of dollars, so it doesn't make it really affordable for any of us. It kind of like, if quantum computers stay this way, they will inevitably lead to techno-feudalism. of the ultimate kind. But I would say that as we are today, with the possibility that quantum computers get into the houses of every person in the future, there is still the problem that quantum computers they could lead to the takeover that we are all fearing. Because at the moment people think about artificial intelligence simply as algorithms. But we know from Stanley Kubrick's prediction in Space 2001 how it all ends up.
Yeah, I saw a weird one, The Creator, the other night, a sci-fi about a AI manifesting as a child that was like Messiah-like. It was pretty.
Yes, I saw that. I saw
was
that.
pretty weird. What?
Yeah, I've actually, it kind of shows us really how they're pushing this transhumanist concept more and more. The next big thing is the battle of the BCIs, the brain-computer interfaces, and the way that they will be used more and more outside of the medical, because initially they would say this is for medical reasons, the guy can't walk, the guy can do this, now he can have this or this other thing inside his body. I think that they will push more and more in the next 10 to 15 years external elements into our bodies, because that is the way they can then make us transcend and embrace transhumanism.
Nanobots. I've seen a lot of weird stuff about that, like being in people possibly and stuff like that.
Ultimately, nanobots or any nanotechnology, the thing is who is gonna enter our bodies and what they, when you see people like Harari, the prophet of doom, or actually their favorite demagogue of the World Economic Forum. I mean, Harari is there telling us about all their fears, because ultimately they want to be in control of all this, and they want to maintain their elite status. So we can continue being the small people, but more and more we can be numbers under them, because the grid there is no place we can really escape today. When some people tell me, oh, America is going to fall, China is going to conquer us. Yeah. And where are you going to go? To Mexico, which deals with China? Are you going to go to Europe, which is half Chinese already? Are you going to go to Russia, which works with China? Are you going to Africa, which is full of China? China is the dragon of the apocalypse. And they're the ones who are basically working on this cyber Satan more than anyone else. They're the ones who are spreading this artificial intelligence data vampirism through, for example, TikTok. That is a way for them to absorb more and more data.
Have you seen that there's some guy that's on a lot of right-wing news and stuff, Pascal Nadaj or something like that, Nadaj, but he was going around saying he's one of the Kennedys reincarnated. I've noticed a lot of weird stuff with people wanting to be the Kennedys in some weird way. Like there's one guy that goes around saying he escaped like MK Ultra.
Well, I personally think today, as we are broadcasting, is the 23rd of August, and it's quite a particular day, because for the first time, I think, in history, a former Democrat from the Kennedy family has actually endorsed Donald J. Trump. Somebody who is the son of somebody, and also who had an uncle who was a president, and the son of somebody who wanted to become president and never became. They were both assassinated. But in any case, the Kennedy family, of course, is part of, let's say, American mythology almost. Having said that, I was actually quite positively shocked by some of the things that RFK said today. I like the fact that he discussed the problems our children are having. The fact that here in California, 22% of the children are actually have some problem, some mental problem of sorts. I mean, and all this due to the fact that they are being poisoned. We are being poisoned more and more by substances that we shouldn't have in our bodies. I think that there is a big problem here in America with obesity, for example. There is a big problem with a lot of our health issues that eventually created problems also during the period, unfortunately, of the pandemic, for that reason. I mean, a lot of the things that Kennedy said today, also in regards to the censorship and everything else, I mean, I found it very pleasant, this whole thing that he might be working maybe with the future Trump administration. That is the reality of the Kennedy family. He is an outcast in the Kennedy family. The rest of the Kennedy family, it's part of the system. They are just like libtards, brainwashed by the media like everybody else, who lives maybe remembering, like one grandchild of Kennedy did during the DNC, remembering their grandfather, what he did, the great man and all that, but they are simply eluding themselves. And we are really going towards the end of the American dream. If these coming elections will see Kamala winning, that will be probably the end really of the American dream. I hope that's not the case. This is the year I became American. For me, the elections of November will be very important because it will be my first elections. Now, I know that the system is rigged often, but we like to think that still America will preserve this great constitution, and that hopefully we will get out of this mess.
Yeah, and the political scene in America, I mean, both sides to me seem nauseating as far as their leaders. To me, both sides seem alarming. Like, I don't know, it's just scary either way you look at it, kind of cult-like. But do you have any?
Yeah, but you see, I come from a point of view of having exited the Illuminati and certain forms of Freemasonry. I saw what's going on in the New World Order. They want to push the leftist ideology that we saw in the last few days at the DNC. They don't want to push the Republican ideology of Trump, this new Republican ideology, which has nothing to do with the old neocon ideology. Now, the Republicans of Dick Cheney, of Bush, those people were despicable individuals that made really a pact with the devil, with that organization called PNAC that they created in the second half of the 90s, which was born to create these great conflicts, which unfortunately saw devastation in foreign lands, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, the death of many of our soldiers. It's really sad. So we saw what the neocons did. We saw what the Democrats have done too. No peace. Actually, they are waging war against Russia because by expanding, and this was actually another positive note of today's speech by Kennedy. It's true, Russia has their faults, but they wanted to simply have those deals that they made after the Second World War respected, meaning that their areas of influence are over those countries of the former Soviet Union. And then we start to expand more and more in their territory. We instigate a conflict. And so that is a big problem. You see, Ukraine is actually a country whose identity was created by the Illuminati. I explained that in a whole chapter here. From the 1850s, the Illuminati created various secret societies to create the Ukrainian identity, both Polish and German, fomenting the birth of something that wasn't even there so they could antagonize Russia. Russia was infiltrated by the Illuminati. The Tsar was killed, melted into acid with his whole family. We have to take a stand in all this. We can't simply say all sides are the same. The Democrats are the sons of communism, of Marxism. That is the Illuminati, guys. And so I can't in any way assert that there is the same between these two candidates. I'm not saying that Trump is in any way, shape, or form a saint. He's not. The system is rigged. For the Republicans that go to Washington, most of them fall into that Trump that Trump has described as the swamp. The swamp is basically the weakness of our democracy. You see, the problem with America is that we have a weakness here. We have to fight in a new millennium nations which don't have any form of democracy. They understood the weakness of democracy. They have raised above it. That is Russia, that is China. Now, I don't want to be neither like Russia, neither with China. At that point, I will prefer to embrace the old monarchies if I have to go back to that kind of rulers. But the thing is that here in America, we have people who get elected. Then the moment they arrive in Washington, they meet lobbyists, they meet other people with a lot of money, and suddenly they are and if they tend to rebel to all that, they of course will be tempted with sexual. We saw what goes on in those rooms. They will be filmed and they will be blackmailed. So you have all these people who are either blackmailed on the payroll of the military industrial complex or the big pharma and so on. Now, I think that is very important that we understand where we have that this is the last possibility we have here for a free election, because we had for decades, though, two sides that were not really fighting with each other because the whole system was simply rigged. Either Democrats or Republicans, they were all together. In fact, they were even thinking of having George W. Bush as guest for the DNC convention the last few days. So this just to show you what kind of conservative he was. Now, I don't say that Trump is perfect, but the fact that he has been endorsed now by RFK, and that both of them are sticking a finger to the system which wants to obviously persecute us as well as them. I mean, when you see what has happened for the last few years with Trump, they instrumentally use the FBI to go against all the January 6th. I mean, all this is, of course, unacceptable. It's not American in any way, shape, or form. I had to flee Europe because of these people. I know exactly who they are. The Jesuits are the ones who are letting millions, 20 million people into America with Joe Biden, the second Catholic president. He let them in. 20 million people who didn't have to go through what I went. I went through hell. I had to wait 10 years to become an American citizen. These people come through illegally and they give them everything. So there is a very big difference in November at the ballot on who you decide to vote.
It's going to be apocalyptic no matter which way, I think. Hey, have you ever come across anything weird about Rasputin? That's a weird dude, like with secret societies or anything. That's a strange.
Rasputin was a member of a secret society he was coming from a shamanic Siberian tradition. Russia was filled with secret societies back then, but he definitely had also very big power in him. Now, the only thing I ever saw of Rasputin, and I'm sorry, I have to be very open about it, was his big giant dick in a jar in a museum in St. Petersburg, because he had something like 30 centimeters. I mean, the guy was like a horse. But that
only very little.
that was Rasputin. Rasputin used the power of sexual magic. He wasn't just using. He knew, and he was working with his what the Illuminati called since the time of mesmerism, animal magnetism. He had a lot of animal magnetism, definitely, and he was very dangerous. And in fact, in the end, it was actually the Freemasons close to the Tsar who went to kill him. And it took a lot to kill him because he kept on resurfacing, and it was really a difficult one. But definitely Rasputin was also a demon of sorts. He was very demonic in his nature. And I think that at that time there was a lot of demonic elements within the Russian society. In 1905, as I explained in my book here, volume 9, the Tsar gave permission for the secret societies to reestablish themselves after they had been prohibited, including Freemasonry. That led the possibility for the Grand Orient of the Russian people to be established, which was a form of Freemasonry, which was kind of atheistic. It was born out of the Commune experience in Paris. Paris was the laboratory of those Illuminati who also founded the League of the Just with Karl Marx. Karl Marx, I mean, the founder of the League of the Just, Karl Marx then published his manifesto for that. So, I mean, the Illuminati were pretty instrumental in creating that demonic thing called communism and socialism. We need to fight it in any way, shape, or form. National Socialism, fascism were no better because they were part of socialism. They were part, in the end, they were all part of this, even if they were fighting on the opposing, they were all being created by the Illuminati, and eventually these ideologies left us. They are all experiments, no? Here in America now we have the woke ideology, but the woke ideology is a product of the Frankfurt School, and it's a product itself of the Illuminati. So today they want us to embrace things that are, for me, unacceptable. They are unnatural. So, I mean, we could be debating this for all night, but I mean, I personally think that America should still lead the way in the world. It doesn't necessarily mean to be the world sheriff. It doesn't need to maintain that position as the world sheriff, because now we are weakening America by not really understanding what is happening here. 2 hours from where I live in San Diego, there is thousands of Chinese entering. And these Chinese are going, where are they going? Because most of them are military-age men, and they could fight. Now, they could form battalions of communist Chinese in America as we are speaking, and most Americans would be like, okay. But then you will find these Chinese are pretty evil people when they want to get together and they want to fight you. Trust me. So, I mean, we are being too tolerant.
I think we need to be careful for sure. We're at the, do you need to go now? I think it's 90 minutes, or do you need to check?
I have another 9 minutes here counting. So if you want to give me another question, I will answer.
Yeah, we can. Ordo Universalis. That's your channel, right? On X. Is that your channel?
Yes.
Yeah, we got an increase in viewership. Shout out to that. Hey, now. but yeah, definitely.
Well, you see, X is now Elon Musk. But look at what happened in 2020. I had a channel which was much bigger on Twitter. They didn't take it down. They simply blocked me, and I could never access it. So now there is actually a Leo Zagami account that is frozen in time, and I'm relaunching now though a new account with X, since Elon Musk has given me the possibility of opening with my name and also verified blue check mark. I'm taking advantage of the whole thing, and I hope that I will reach more and more people. But it was really incredible, the level of censorship that took place in 2020. I had 17 YouTube channels taken down. I had Facebook, actually, to continue my operations on Facebook, I had to receive a physical letter from headquarters of Facebook to my home with a code. Otherwise, they will lock me out. I mean, it's been quite incredible, the level of censorship, the level of control that violates, of course, the privacy that no longer exists. From 9/11 onwards, things simply went into another direction. And now we are really with this kind of big brother society, which is going to become worse and worse, because still, as we talk, we have still the possibility of the freedom of thought in our heads. That's probably something that in a few years we no longer going to have if we continue embracing this reality, which, like I said, is pushing towards transhumanism, because they want to enter your body so they can control everything, your thoughts and everything else with it. They are ultimately, on the verge of abandoning the traditional human being and embracing something else, because they don't need all these humans anymore. They can use robots. So the elite knows very well that the robots can do all the jobs that millions of people used to do before. So in 10 years from now, they want to get rid of all these millions of people. That's another big problem. The fact that we have these never-ending wars, like you said earlier, in the Middle East. The Middle East is a never-ending war, is an eternal conflict, but they will keep on being an eternal conflict because they are all corrupted, and at the same time they need us with these constant wars, a little bit like George Orwell said, never-ending wars. And then you have the one with Ukraine and Russia. These are never-ending wars, and they are actually we are the ones paying for it. When we go to we are the ones who pay for these wars. So it's the military-industrial complex that makes the profits. Is the big pharma that made the profits before with the pandemic, but they're still going to make the profits even in the future, because you see, when you have all these people go and fight these wars, then they come back from these wars. Their mental state is damaged, and who makes the profit?
I was surprised Ukraine's still beating up on Russia. I'm surprised they're even still alive, pretty much. But I know I've seen all those recent attacks on Russia lately. That's pretty crazy.
The thing is that there is, of course, Ukraine utilizing weapons, advanced weapons that we have been giving to them. We have been financing them. That's why it's very important that somebody stops this whole war, and it's not going to be the Democrats, because the Democrats are the ones who always instigate and continues these wars. The Republicans, they have a different idea under Trump. I'm not saying because then you have the swamp creatures like McConnell and others. These people, they are just as bad as the Democrats. They're all part of this complacent group of people in Washington, D.C., which is corrupted by money and power. That's how it is. We saw it with, who was it? That woman who challenged Trump as a Republican nominee. I don't even remember. Nikki Haley. Well, she made this whole thing, but in reality, she's going to end up probably working for one of the military-industrial companies. So
sorry about that.
So they simply end up working for the system, and nobody's gonna ever hear about her again. But probably she's gonna make a lot of money because she has been a good tool for the system. I like people who really gamble everything for what they believe in. And at the moment, I can say that maybe Trump and RFK, because of the position they are in, they are gambling everything. So they have definitely my support. But I'm not saying that this is a solution of all problems, especially because once Trump wins, they're going to activate everything they can to disrupt his presidency. And one of the things they're going to use, like I explained in volume 10 of my confessions, is, of course, the terrorists that in the meantime have come into this country in the last 4 years since Biden started the last 3 years since Biden started his presidency. And that's how it is. They are ready for another 9/11, the moment in which maybe Trump wins. And that's a pretty scary thought. Especially because they might also go one step further into the next 9/11 and make it nuclear I hope not, but that's a possibility. The Ukrainians are very desperate people too. They have the Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which is the biggest nuclear plant in Europe, and that's also a very big problem. But thank you very much for having me on. It's always a pleasure to be on every 2 or 3 years on your show.
Yeah,
Mabus, and thank you for all your listeners also who have followed us, your viewers on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio, and 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans. I mean, all these people who are listening to us now. I just wish we had a little bit more time, but if you want to follow my latest articles, leozagami.com, and then of course you find also the links to my latest books.
Yeah, keep us in the loop on your future volumes, and love to have you back on. I know you were just Michelle Desrocher. She's on my network too, up in Canada. Other realm, you were on there not too long ago. But we appreciate it so much, Leo. Thanks so much. It's been a great interview and a wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to you, Jeffrey. And I want to announce to your audience that I'm having in the next couple of weeks a new volume 11. It's going to be dedicated to a very important subject, the subject of mind control. There will be very important revelations also in regards to Canada. By the way, you just mentioned Canada, but also regards to the attempted assassination of Donald Trump and much more. So I will send you, of course, a index of my book with an article covering the presentation of it as soon as it's available. And thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Take care. Stay out of trouble. We'll talk to you later. And let's keep Rasputin's penis hibernating. We don't want to wake it. That's for sure. It might be an entity. But have a good night. All right. Welcome back. You listen to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. And we got about, I don't even know, 5 till. That's all I know. I'm recuperating from sunburn and just feeling nauseous a lot lately. I don't know. I'll be glad when it's getting to the 70s, at least at night here. Thank God. I'll be glad when it's 60s. That's all I know. Oh, we have a swimming pool on the back porch, a big swimming pool. I mean, not a big one. It's one of those plastic ones that's sort of big, but not really, that you buy at like a Dollar General. Frogs have decided to dump like a gazillion tadpoles in it.
Well, there you go.
Been giving them dog food. It's like I'm talking about. There's like thousands.
You're gonna have a mess of frogs.
Already, like a lot of frogs. Like there's a ton of them. I mean, just outside, like these little tree frogs. There's like 1 million of them. So now we have like a gazillion in the pool. Tadpole babies. I don't know what kind of frog it is. There's so many different frogs around here. But it's cool.
You get yourself into so many animal situations.
Yeah. It's like they just let loose in this pool. And I swear you can there's so many, it's like just insane. Like there's so many there's like how they don't even have enough space. There's so many. Like it's weird. I have to try to take a picture of it somehow. But next week is Rich Germeau, former tribal police on Bigfoot. And let's see what's coming up here. Let's see. Next is Arlen Schumer. That's Twilight Zone and a lot of different stuff. Then Gary Clevenger. That's Rod Serling and a lot of different weird stuff. Jeffrey Shanks. That's my buddy here in Florida. Weird archaeology. Dennis Stone. That's American Stonehenge. Then Stephen Ward. That's October 4th. And then October 11th, Dr. Charles Liu. That's Quantum Physics Answer Book. October 18th, Paul Wilde. That's Jim Morrison Occult Teacher Book. More Traditions. October 25th, Dara Mason. That's a Lord of the Crossroads, The Dark Man. That's a Halloween show. And then I got Ellen Everett Hoffman, a Druid book. That's in November. I'm working on November. But let's see. I hear a little feedback, but he said StreamYard's acting weird, so who knows? I need some water. Let's see, we still got those 61 people listening, so what are they listening for? I'm kidding. But anywho, welcome. I'm glad this is a Church of Mabus radio. See, we have a guy that comes on named Eric Grimsrud that thinks Trump is Mabus the Antichrist and breaks it down with the acronym MABUS with drunk. So that's one to look up in the archives for all you listeners out there, for new listeners for sure.
Yeah. Well, then we have this dude on who it's like, okay, whatever, dude. Just like, whatever.
Well, we have different viewpoints, and it's been so crazy. Like, I just politics, like, kind of zone it out. I'm just so tired of it. So, just my mom been listening to the DNC every day, blasting it, making popcorn. So I have that going on down the hall. Then I have to go look at my job, which is like the polar opposite of that. Which is,
it's true. It's kind of like, it's true. I mean, like I didn't watch either convention because I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat. But I am also not an Illuminaughty conspiracy theorist. So it's like, it's not that I don't think that there aren't networks, but a lot of people get conspiracy and networks confused. Just because you have networks doesn't mean that there's automatically a conspiracy linking everything. So anyway, whatever, I kind of let people like that talk because they obviously are only interested in what they have to say anyway. You know what I mean? So,
and a lot of this stuff just seems to lead back to like yuppie rich assholes that are probably go power trips with this Illuminati or whatever. My extent of Illuminati-ness is the weirdos that come on Facebook that are like some weird cult or Nigerians. I don't know what they are, but they're probably people pretending to be white people too, because there's white people, like weird bearded dudes. Maybe they are members. I don't know, but I don't talk to them. I used to like mess around with them and say, mess with them and troll them. I don't even do that anymore. They're so creepy. I don't want to get put on a further list. So I just ignore
right. Well, and like a lot of the stuff that he was saying about, not all of it, but a lot of the stuff that he was saying about Sufi orders and their connection to Illuminati and stuff, a lot of it was very simplified. A lot of it wasn't true. I mean, some of the stuff about Turkey was true, but it's like, I mean, what he seemed to forget about what he did not make clear about the assassins in particular is that the assassins did not give a flying rat's butt about Christians. They were killing other Muslims. And that's true of ISIS, quote unquote, as well. We tend to think of ISIS as being, well, they were this terrible, terrorist organization, but they were, and they do regard, since they're not quite dead yet, the West as an enemy, but they actually go after other Muslims who they regard more frequently, who they regard as, deceitful auxiliaries and collaborators with the West. They're much less interested in reforming the West because they know the West is this huge entity than they are rooting out what they consider to be the problems with certain types of Islam. And in fact, they've gone after the Sufis. Sufis in different parts of the world have been among their principal targets. So it's kind of like, there's a difference between a mystical order and an occult order and a lodge. Those are different and distinct things. You might have some individuals who are members of more than one kind of situation, but it's like, you know, I mean, there are all kinds of rumors. I mean, the reason why, Aleister Crowley could never get into Mecca was because he was never a Muslim. He was never willing to take Shahada. So you can't enter Mecca unless you are Muslim. So it's really clear why he could never go there. It wasn't any big secret thing. It's.
I unfortunately found a picture of Rasputin's penis in a jar.
Why did you have to look that up? Well, have you seen a picture of the biggest known turd in the world? Fossilized turd. Hold on. It's a Viking.
You probably don't want to look at it.
No,
it's very disturbing. It's true. I don't know if it's his penis, but it looks like a horse penis.
Okay.
What are they saying?
There it is. The preserved penis of Grigory Rasputin. Why did anyone preserve it?
I know. Supposedly Napoleon was in the jar too. It just seems wrong. Not that matters that they had it, I guess, but it's just weird. Who knows if it's real? I mean, it's real, obviously.
I mean, it's a real penis of some type. Now, look up largest. Do the image search of largest human poop in the world.
Oh gosh!
Look how big it is. It's bigger than Rasputin's penis.
Largest human poop in the world. Let's see. And our viewers, you can do this too. Is it Lloyd's Bank Copperlight?
Yeah.
1,200-year-old log. A log.
It's the biggest poo. It's the biggest recorded human poo on record.
Wow. I saw a movie about Rasputin with Alan Rickman playing it. That was pretty good a long time ago. I'd watch it again, but Alan Rickman as Rasputin. That's pretty cool. It's
a Viking poo. I thought that you might be interested in it because it's a Viking poo. It contains pollen grains and the remains of cereal bran, the eggs of whipworm and mawworm.
Wow. The poop of Thors. The Thors of poop. But, just remember, Leo started the Rasputin's penis thing, not me. So I'm just clarifying.
Right. Yeah. Our listeners can look this stuff up on their own.
Yeah, and you can rewind, and he started that. I just asked about Rasputin innocently. I didn't even expect to hear about his anatomy. But I want some more Vlad the Impaler secrets. It's hard to find. That's why I was asking about the French book, but that's not going to do me any good. I don't speak French, but it sounds interesting. I've always seen this thing about scholomance or scholomance, and I know Don Webb talked about it. But something about a secret school that was ran by the devil. It might have been just super folklore or something, but it's interesting nonetheless. Did you watch Unsolved Mysteries any?
I did. In fact, after we talked on Saturday, because I really didn't have anything to do on Saturday because it was raining here. It was the weather was bad, so I couldn't go out in the garden and really do anything. So I just sat here and I binged the whole thing. Did you watch any of them?
I haven't watched it yet, but I mean, I need to.
I binged all of them. I'll have to rewatch parts of them, but I don't think it's as strong a season as the other seasons have been. I was really disappointed in the paranormal episode.
666.
I was really disappointed in it, and when you watch it, you'll see why. Because you'll be disappointed in it too. I think.
Do you see up there? I in the countdown. It says 666.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the view. I don't know if you can see it. It says live. There's
I can't. Okay. Yeah, I can't see it. There is one interesting. I can't remember now which one. There's I think there are 5 episodes, and 3 of them are, true crime, And what is interesting, and I can't remember now which one it is, and I don't want to give you any spoilers, but there is one episode, one true crime episode, that as part of the episode, there is a weird thing that happens in it, that it's like a really weird synchronicity or coincidence, and they talk about it, that they can't explain, that helped to that changed the complexion of the whole story in some way, and they can't explain it to this day. So there's like a slight paranormal element that's connected to one of the true crime cases, and it is that was interesting, because sometimes that happens like that. The first episode is interesting because it's a reevaluation of a very, very old cold case, which will be very familiar to people when they watch it. And what they do in the episode, which is interesting, is that they very minutely go through it's a murder mystery. They very minutely go through each of the known murders that are actually connected to the case, that it's believed that they go through the case. And then they address all of the different rumors that have emerged with the evidence or not, and discuss why some of these are better ideas than others, and dismiss certain things and demonstrate why certain ideas about it couldn't be true. It's a famous case. I think it's an interesting approach that they took to kind of cut through the conspiracies and the rumors about this case, and just sort of try to bring it back to the same kind of scrutiny that any cold case might deserve. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I appreciated what they did with it. I thought it was done well. And it was interesting that they picked it,
So, yeah, that's interesting. Supposedly there's a house down the road, like a mansion that's down the road from me, and there was a murder in it of bankers in Graceville, Florida, and someone told me there was an old Unsolved Mysteries episode about it, like a guy broke in this and killed them, and there's an elevator, and the people he killed were bankers. But I've been trying to find the episode. For some reason I can't find it, so I don't know if the person was just full of it, or if they're just hard to find, like a title, looking for it and stuff. But
sometimes the titles are like, because you can, like, they're all on YouTube. Everything's on YouTube now. There's like an Unsolved Mysteries channel where, like, all of them, not only Robert's, all the ones that are not connected to the podcast and not connected to Netflix are all on this Unsolved Mysteries channel. And the reason I think that they have it is because some of the mysteries are ongoing. You know what I mean? It's so people could see them and actually watch them, and some of the unsolved cases. So, but the titles of the episodes don't always necessarily tell you what it's about. You know what I mean? So it would be difficult to. Do you know what the name of that place is, or the people who were involved?
I can look it up. I forget right now, but Graceville, Florida, famous banker murder. The McRae, I think McRae murders. I think that's it. Wait. Back on the cat. Let's see. It's been 30 years. Yeah, McRae. Robert and Catherine McRae. McRae. It's right down the road. And the house is just creepy because that happened there. So
does anybody live there?
Yep, someone does. But I've never gone up to it or anything like that. But I got to start ending it. But if you need something funny, Fairy Tale Theater is all on YouTube, hosted by Shelley Duvall with what's the one, Rapunzel, and What's the little Rumpelstiltskin, like all kinds of stuff. Robin Williams is in it. There's tons of Jeff Bridges, but you got to make sure you find the right one with all the episodes. One's missing an episode, but they're all there, but they're really fun to watch. We've been watching those. Fairy Tale Theater, hosted by Shelley Duvall, is an old one. But everybody, you're listening to United Public Radio, 107.7 FM New Orleans. Everybody have a good weekend. Take care. Thanks, Wham. Thanks to Leo. Thanks to everybody. Everybody have a good weekend. Good night, everybody.
Good night.